Good afternoon, everyone. Andy Jacob here with the DotCom magazine Entrepreneur Spotlight Series. And today's show is a very special show. I've been waiting to get Mr. Paul Price, the chairman and CEO of Argyle Executive Forums, on the show for a number of weeks. He's finally been able to cut some time for us today. Argyle is an incredible company. You probably know about Argyle, and they bring business information and thought leadership to leading professionals from Fortune 500 companies in North America, all around the globe. It's a very interesting business model. Paul is a leader in the field, and I'm so excited, Paul, that you've come on the show today.
Thanks, Andy. It's great to be here.
Thank you, Paul. Let's pull the lens back just a little bit. In the unlikely event that our viewers or the people watching the show have not heard of Argyle, let's tell them what Argyle is and what it's all about.
Sure. Argyle Executive Forum produces digital events and other digital experiences for business-to-business marketers to help them grow their business by reaching their audiences.
See, that's unbelievable. And you've produced these amazing technological communication projects all through North America, Europe, Asia, Australia. You've curated membership of over 2 million business leaders in finance and marketing and data analytics, technology, strategy, customer engagement, everything. How have you been able to build such a powerful company, and how do you put together such incredible people and talent on your platform?
Well, thank you. It's very flattering, Andy. Firstly, the business is nearly 25 years old. It may in fact be a little bit older than that. It was formed privately and back then, and it built a niche for itself as a specialist in the C-suite and in reaching the C-suite decision makers in various industries, in particular the finance, IT, HR, and let's say the broader management community. And its reputation grew over time. I acquired the company after having been hired as its CEO by investors. When I was hired, I had a distinct liking for this business and the category, and my marketing services background was very, very suitable for it. And so when the opportunity presented itself to buy it, I did so. Now, we are no dissimilar to any other creative and technology-enabled services business. Our people, our talent is what distinguishes us. And, I'm the happiest guy on earth that I've got very talented people in the production area, in the customer service area, our sales team, our content and editorial folks, and our finance and operations folks. And that team works very, very well together. We have very, very strong processes that we engage our clients in when they come on board with us to create the sorts of digital experiences they want. Or enable the sponsorship that they're typically taking of an event that we produce on their behalf.
See, this is amazing. So let's talk about that a little bit, because a lot of people are watching the show and they're saying, well, what can Argyle do for me, or what can Argyle do for my company? Because Argyle has so many people that it's impacted throughout the years in a positive way. And you have so many experts at Argyle working behind the scenes to make all of these things happen. So if I'm watching the show and I have a company, whether it's an Inc. 500 company, an Inc. 5000 company, or a Fortune 500 company, how does Argyle incorporate its methodologies into that company to help them grow and learn?
Well, first of all, through our discovery process, we determine who is most important to our clients, and then you alluded to our database. One of the proprietary features of our company is, over the years, we've built an extraordinary database of C-suite decision makers and partners It's that database which provides an immensely rich source of attendees to our events. And we typically create a calendar each year with events which have over the years become very, very popular. For example, we have a CMO forum coming up shortly, which will focus on very senior marketing management topics and issues very relevant to those folks. And we will firstly go to a great deal of trouble to recruit the audience for that particular event. We'll do so meeting certain obligations we undertake to our clients to deliver a certain number or exceed that. And I'm happy to say that that's something that we're very strong at. And again, that gets back to the accuracy of our database and some of the other CRM and database marketing skills that the company has.
So let's break that down a little bit further. Let's simplify it a little bit. If I own a company and I want to get in front of decision makers, one way in which that I can do that, and there's a multitude of ways. One way that I can do that is perhaps to hold a forum or hold an online event. And
right.
In that way, I'm able to contact you, Paul, at Argyle, your team, and put the event on for my company. You invite this incredible database of people that I'm going to be wanting to have coming to my forum. And then that way I'm able to bring the right people to my forum to engage with. Is that one way to look at this?
100% right, Andy. You should work for us.
Great.
You're
Great.
hired.
So I love that. And I love this so much because it makes so much sense in the world. So so could you give us an idea of a recent event that you held and the type of company, maybe without naming the company, that you held the event for, and what type of people came to the event? And this way, this will give the viewership, the people that are C-level executives, founders, startup entrepreneurs, et cetera, an idea of what they could do with your platform.
Sure. I might go back a little bit. Toward the end of last year, we staged our DataX event. Now, DataX is one of our brands that we've created to support the data sciences area, which, as you know, has become incredibly important as a method for companies to maintain their competitive advantage, to continue to understand the underlying trends driving their business and doing so through very, very advanced data techniques. And our view was that this was not a market that had been very well served in the event marketing space before, despite the fact that it's a growing community. It's incredibly important in terms of both its strategic role to a company as well as to the very, very important advances that are almost always occurring in this space because technology and data sciences are so close and akin to one another. And so, we will stage, in that particular case, we stage a 2-day event involving multiple sessions, involving keynote speakers from within the industry, people who are very, very well recognized and highly regarded in that world. Sponsors who wish to can also take positions on the agenda to share thought leadership from them, which is a very good thing because, again, one of the things that we encourage is our events be, very useful in terms of benchmarking by learning how other companies are doing certain things. And in the data sciences area, that's a very important topic of discussion and interest. And furthermore, the events themselves, because of the beauty of digital platforms, means that we can stage them with very wide distribution. In fact, we've got folks dialing in is an old term. I'm showing my age there a little bit, but folks joining us online in international markets, despite the time differences, because of the interest in the topic. And so our sponsors benefit at many levels. At one level, by virtue of the nature of events themselves, they provide an extraordinary opportunity for brands to build relationships with the customers and the marketplace in a reasonably intimate fashion. Even though these days we operate entirely online, we will return to live events, which the company built its reputation on, and of course physical proximity will return, and the sorts of things and benefits that come from that. But in the meantime, our clients are quite frankly very, very happy with the digital format, and we are, by way of creating surrogates for physical contact, we're involving interactivity, we're involving chat rooms, we're involving virtual environments where people can huddle separately during a conference. And so, I see us in a way as a sort of like a narrowcaster, right? We are using a proprietary online platform which is designed to host events at the scale that we need them to, and to do so very, very reliably. A Zoom, if you like, for event management. And then secondly, we're very adept at using, again, our database marketing skills, our data analytics skills to get the right people to those events. We are discovering, by the way, that we are over-delivering and have been over-delivering, since March last year, when we converted to digital entirely. I took the view that the reality would be that live events weren't going to be around for long, and happily we made the right decision. So then at another level, we're building the reputation of these brands, and by the way, not just Fortune 500s or Inc. 2000s or thousands. We support lots and lots of smaller businesses, startups and VC-funded businesses who are simply looking at a very highly targeted way in which to distribute understanding of their brands and their offering to their customers. And in the B2B market, as Andy, that's a very important consideration.
Paul, that's amazing. So you were able to take Argyle, which has been known for its live events. Last March, you decided that, we're going to go virtually, and it's worked so well, and you've been able to over-deliver so much for your customers that you see this virtual platform that you've built becoming a very important part of Argyle. Let's talk about a startup or a venture-backed, maybe Series A round company, and maybe they don't want to have you produce an entire show, but maybe what they're interested in is they want to do some promotion on a big show that you have coming up. Is that also a big component of what you do?
Yeah, we have a very, very flexible menu for folks to participate in, and we can have our sponsors join us, pretty nominal 5-figure amounts. To have a presence during the event, and to benefit from access to the database of attendees that have joined the event, who, by the way, welcome the engagement, because there's an understanding amongst our subscriber base and our database that's sort of the quid pro quo for otherwise enjoying immensely informative and insightful events around topics that would otherwise be very difficult to access. So the starting prices can be very modest, and also the formats can vary. We had, before COVID, we had a very strong webinar business. In other words, we would produce for clients 45 to 1 hour format webinars. We're literally talking about thousands a year that we would produce. These are quite modest in cost. They have very, very high impact because, again, this is a very personal medium, and it gives the sponsor an opportunity really to showcase their product in full. Now, we go to a lot of trouble to help from a content perspective curate that content so that it's presented in a fashion which is of interest to the attendees. But that business is a starting point for many of our clients when they first engage us. And then we go on to, for some clients, produce their annual event marketing calendar, several events in a year that we've planned for them, multiple audiences engaged on their behalf, and multiple different topics, all of which are designed to support their sales teams, whether they be regional, local, national, international, achieve the lead quotas that these folks need to achieve, and the outreach that they need to drive their businesses.
When someone contacts you, what's the process? Because I know you have a team, Paul. Someone contacts you and says, "Listen, I've known about Argyle for years. I attended some Argyle events, and I actually did business with some of the people that promoted on the Argyle platform or put the events on, and I want to do my own sort of event, or I want to be part of the next event to promote my product or service." Right. What's the process that you take these entrepreneurs through? How do you get them from point A to B?
We have, firstly, our sales team will facilitate an onboarding process that will be picked up and managed through our customer success team. All clients are engaged by us through our client management team. And then when we've determined with the client that, a particular format is suitable, it's this particular event, it's coming up in November that they'd like to sponsor, whatever it is that they've decided they'd like to do with us, whether that's an event we already stage on our calendar, which we publish in 6-month format for folks to understand what's coming up, or it's an event that the client would like us to create custom for them. We then attach a producer and often an assistant producer, depending on the size of the event, and it's really there that we through the producer. These folks are akin to TV producers. They're a little bit more like what you'd see in a TV newsroom or that, like, in that they firstly our executive producers have very, very strong knowledge of the industries. As I said, we focus on tech and finance, HR and management, with a slant towards marketing. So we have a very, very strong production staff who've got a lot of expertise in that area, and they're very senior folks who've been doing it a while. And through a process which we use to define the agenda, make sure the client's happy with the agenda that we've put together if it's a custom event, or we there's a session that the client has decided they'd like to sponsor and provide thought leadership in, and we in turn then provide guidance to them on content areas that are relevant to their business that will shine a spotlight on what they're good at, and cast the company in the best light. And then the account management or client management team and our production team together will just escort the client through that to the day, and then our customer success team will follow up with post-event analytics, let you know the folks that attended, provide access to that list, advise of interest that is often we'd expect to occur as a result of the content that we've helped the client curate and present.
That's amazing. I mean, it is really, really a brilliant model, especially using the technology platform that you sort of moved over to last March. Yeah. Now, you've got millions of people in the community that have attended your online events and, of course, your live events throughout the years. And you're really bringing in customers or clients or attendees from all over the world, Paul. So let me ask you this question. When you look at the world today, what area or what country do you feel is going to be sort of the next country of explosion in a good way, where they have so many people that have a thirst and a quench for knowledge that might be an area that Argyle may be able to even do even more business in, because those people just have this quench for knowledge right now?
Right. Look, without giving anything away, I have to share that India is tremendously important, I think, as an emerging market in our category, and generally. I don't think it's any coincidence that I think Walmart are intending to source, a significant percentage of their overseas product from the Indian market, replacing a good deal of product sourced from China. So I would say that India is a market I look at. It's English speaking by and large. It's very well educated. It's got an emerging middle class. It's got pretty stable government, and largely business friendly in those terms. So we're already in conversation with some colleagues over there that we're very keen on forming some partnership with to extend our brand into that market in a way which could be of benefit to Indian B2B marketers, and also particularly Indian B2B marketers who have healthy prospects here in the United States.
See, I love that. So Paul, Argyle is known for really helping your customers increase their ROI by having an opportunity to have more people to sell their systems or wares to, and you've done a great job, thus the amazing sort of reputation you have in the community at large with regard to these live shows and, of course, the virtual shows.
Thank you.
So someone watching the show right now, Paul, is going to be saying to themselves, how many people can they actually get on the platform virtually to watch one of these productions? Is there a limit, or do you have an unlimited amount of capacity?
We can host thousands, or we can host a dozen. We're doing one-to-ones for some clients who like the intimacy of that format. We're doing roundtable discussions, which involve maybe a dozen people. But DataX is an event we held recently, approaching 1,000 attendees. Now, we are somewhat of a specialist in that, we're not in the trade show business. We don't host or support, these very large physical trade shows involving tens of thousands of attendees and hundreds of thousands of square feet, the sorts of stuff you see in Vegas and so on. We focus on, quite frankly, smaller events. 500 is probably the upper limit of what we typically do. I think we're seeing expanded audiences at the moment because we are virtual. It is very easy to access us. We're not constrained by the geography of where we're hosting an event. And I'd like us to, by and large, continue in that fashion. But our sweet spot is very much in the sort of 200 to 500 and below. And that, a lot of that has to do, Andy, with, the audience we're talking about. This is the C-suite. These are the decision makers. They're not particularly easy to get to. It's not that there isn't many of them. There is, a fairly substantial population, because we don't discriminate too much when it comes to company size. I think many of our clients are very interested in the SMB market, for example, which, just by way of scale, I think is back to form. There's something like 80,000 odd businesses formed a month now. Just before the Great Recession, it reached 100,000 a month in the United States. So, the small medium-sized business segment is a very big segment and very valuable. So, you know, we don't discriminate in that regard, but we certainly discriminate when it comes to who. You know, we're very much into providing folks access to the executive management, the C-suite of the companies that they'd like to do business with.
That makes sense. And those small to medium-sized businesses are really the engine that's really, you know, making the locomotive go down the track. So that's amazing that you're able to get those senior executives, even on those small to medium-sized businesses, to attend in certain industry groups, depending on what your wants and needs are and what your clients' wants and needs are. Let's talk a little bit, Paul, if you don't mind, about data, because I know that Argyle has built a reputation on providing your clients with great data after a show. You give them great contact points about what happened during the show. You're known for really making yourself a true partner for your partners so that they become very successful by engaging with Argyle, with the Argyle Executive Forum. So does your platform have built-in data analysis, or do you have people, third parties or people within your company that actually accumulate the data as the show is going on and then provide it to your clients?
We do. We have engagement data, you know, attendance data. We have, you know, a very good understanding of the demography of the attendees, the backgrounds, the business sectors, the company sizes. And we go to some effort to provide that analytics to our sponsors, and they find that very, very useful. We can get a little bit more sophisticated. We do have an advisory business which marries the data we might collect from our events with third-party data or with media platform data, such as social media in particular, and that can be a very, very important way of understanding more deeply the interests and concerns of the particular target. And we would provide that service to folks who perhaps feel like they need a refresher in what it is that their customer segment is listening to and thinking about and engaging in. Our advisory service, our research business, is there for that reason.
See, that's awesome. And I want to get into, Paul, a little bit more in the weeds just for a minute, because people are going to be watching the show. Let's say I'm a startup founder. Let's say I have my first round of funding. Maybe I'm angel backed. And I'm saying to myself, you know, I'm going to go to Argyle's website. I'm going to talk to one of their customer success team members at the Argyle Executive Forum. And I see that you're going to be putting on, let's just say, an event that has interest to me because it looks like it aligns with what I'm selling B2B.
Right.
Okay. So I want to talk about that a little bit because people are going to watch the show and they're going to say, well, how does it all work? So I engage with Argyle and explain the ways that you're going to put my startup company in front of all these C-level executives. In other words, they might be saying to themselves watching the show, well, are they going to put commercials in it about my company, or are they going to put a banner about my company in a certain seminar, or am I going to be one of the featured speakers that can talk in the seminar? What's the ways that my startup in this case, or this case scenario, can get involved with Argyle in one of your upcoming forums?
Right. All of those options are on the table. You know, our customer success team and then at this stage, the early stages, our sales team are wanting to help qualify with the company. You know, what sort of investment can they make? What sort of return are they expecting? And we typically respond with a menu of different options that are tailored to that budget range. The client is guided through which of those is probably going to be most effective given the particular event that they're interested in. So let's say that we've got a CISO event, cybersecurity event coming up. That's a very important area of our business. It's increasingly important to businesses everywhere, of course, for obvious reasons, I guess, now, unfortunately. But and let's say that you've just received funding to market a particular technology platform or product to this particular category. Then we would flag the available sponsorships for that event. Often, we have a certain inventory. We are also going to some trouble, Andy, to support the authority and the authenticity of the events. So editorially, we go to a lot of trouble to ensure there's some level of neutrality, and that while of course our clients are getting engaged for commercial purposes, and we encourage and acknowledge that, we want to make sure that the audience, our guests, are getting what they expect of these events, and that leads to a happier client too. So, we really very much tailor according to their budgets and resources, and that can also include considerations in terms of their sales team and perhaps their involvement in this process, because it's important to them. It's part of the sales budget, the lead acquisition budget for the sales team. We then guide them through making the right choice. And as I said, in an event of a forum, for example, which is typically about a half a day to a day, and there are only going to be a limited number of ways to participate in that forum, because of the ways in which we've learned to curate these events as experiences that are interesting and relevant to our customers without them becoming too commercially slanted, so to speak. And so firstly, we'll look at the available inventory and present that inventory to folks. Say, look, there's this CISO event coming up in August, and there are 5 opportunities to sponsor at these different levels.
You see, I love this, because when someone, in this particular case, when this startup founder calls Argyle and gets on the phone or on the chat or on the Zoom call with one of your experts, the entire business has been around so long, and you have so much data and so much expertise that you know exactly where that person should be, exactly how they should communicate with their potential customers, where in your process or in the feed they should be, where they should be in the online exhibition, if you will, to be successful with their offering. So when they call you, they get a complete consultation based on this immense amount of experience that you have in making companies successful. So from what I'm hearing, Paul, is while there may be a limited number of slots, you know exactly the right place to put your customers, the right way to put them in, the right type of messaging that they need to give, and the right types of components that go along with this very successful campaign. Is that right?
Yeah, that's broadly right, Andy. We most of the time we get it right. Sometimes we don't get it right, but we typically make up for that pretty quickly. So
I love that. I love that. Now, Paul, we do have some younger entrepreneurs that watch the show, and of course they're going to be watching you, and they're saying, Mr. Paul Price is on the phone. He's the chairman and CEO of Argyle. It's a very successful business. I may have even gone on one of the online,
events,
opportunities that they provide to give people an education about very interesting, specialized things. And I'm watching this gentleman, and I'm wondering, how did he become so successful? Because younger entrepreneurs, they always think that it's always a free ride. They always think that they're never going to skin their knees. They're never going to get in front of a pothole, that everything is just sugar and everything's fine and dandy. But I know, Paul, along the way, you must have had a couple of times in your entrepreneurial career where maybe you skinned your knees a little bit and you had to get back off your knees to keep moving forward. So maybe for those younger entrepreneurs, to give them a little advice or maybe to give them a little light at the end of the tunnel if they're going through a tough time, maybe you could share a personal story with them about a time that you skinned your knees and you kept on moving forward and it made you a better person.
Sure. Thank you, Andy. I'd be glad to. When I first became a father, I was determined to be the best dad I possibly could. I didn't want to make many of the mistakes I thought my dad made. I mean that in the most respectful way. But I bought lots of books because that's typically what I do. I do my homework, and I think, part of entrepreneurial success is to know the answers to the questions you've got, typically before you ask them. So I would make that quick point. However, amongst the books I read was a book called How Children Succeed, which is a book about how children learn and the education systems which are most successful and the circumstances in which children typically do well. And without getting into the detail of that book, the insight is a very, very simple one. Of all the things, there is one thing above all others that ensures children are successful in learning environments. And it's not an intelligence score. It's not a definition of intelligence, and not even necessarily economics. It's something they call grit. It's just the ability of the student to persevere. And my view has been for a very long time, while I was not necessarily the cleverest guy in the room, I was usually the most persistent. And I can point to a number of times in my career where, I showed up, I think I'm always staggered by those that don't show up. When you've got to take that phone call that is not going to go well, that when you've got to go to a meeting and you're going to get spanked by the client, you have to be there, and you have to be there for your teammates and your partners, and you've got to be there 100%. And I'm still to this day staggered by the number of instances I saw people who just didn't show up. So I hope that that's of value to folks. I genuinely do believe that what modest success I may have had, and believe me, it's modest compared to many, it has been my persistence. And
Paul, that's amazing. That is absolutely a beautiful message. Grit and persistence. And we don't hear enough of that these days. People get so excited about their technology and so excited about their platform that they kind of get at a high level in their mind about where they're at. And then all of a sudden they hit a little pothole and they don't know how to handle it. And a lot of times they bury their head in the sand and they don't go forward because they've not been trained or taught what it means to have this grit that you're talking about.
Right. I mean, look, Joe Biden's a perfect example. That guy's been running for president since 1988.
Well, that's grit.
That's grit, right? And I think, I've one of my heroes is Elon Musk, as I'm sure many others see him that way. And, there's this phenomenal picture of Elon Musk as a young engineer repairing his car himself because he didn't have the money to do it, by going to a spare parts place and fixing the car himself. And I think, again, Musk persisted. Now, clearly, he was an incredibly talented guy and with an extraordinary vision, and there are many, many other attributes to success. But I don't think it hurts if in the first case you persevere, and that you may fall, but the ability to pick yourself up, learn from the fall, and keep going, I think is really, really important.
I love this. And that's very interesting that you mentioned this, because in this day and age, younger entrepreneurs really need to understand that it's persistence, determination, and grit ultimately that's going to make the difference in their world and make the difference in the world that around them, and have their product or service make a difference in the world. So let's talk about, and I know you only gave me a certain amount of time today, but I have you on the show, and I've been waiting for this conversation with you for a long time. So I have one other sort of area I want to get into, and thanks for maybe allowing me to spend a little extra time than what we had scheduled today, Paul. But when I think of Argyle, I think of it as sort of the ultimate customer engagement tool. Now, everybody's talking about engagement. But when you have the ability through your platform, Paul, to actually get in front of these C-level executives and engage with them and have this engagement with these decision makers for a B2B type company, I can't imagine a better way to get out in front of the exact people at the right time that you want to get in front of. So as we look at the future of Argyle, and you mentioned a little bit what's going to happen, you're going to bring the in-person shows back eventually once we get through the pandemic. But when we look at Argyle's future, what percent of the Argyle business do you believe will be done in person, and what percent of the Argyle business do you believe will be done online?
I think if I had to make a call now, and I think that firstly, because we're a private company, because we've got such well-established processes and a strong management team, we can afford to be very nimble, and I would hunch only at this stage what that might be, because I think, the market is going to constantly present opportunity, and there are areas where live events are going to be very, very important and attractive to clients. And there are areas where, quite frankly, digital events will continue to be important, because, not to segue too far, but, back in my early advertising career, I helped relaunch a rental car company. It was actually Budget Rent-A-Car in Australia, that had gone into liquidation. It was the market leader, and for a period it went completely dark. And so customers had to go to Hertz and Avis, and well, guess what? The experience that they discovered at Hertz and Avis really wasn't that bad. And in fact, the biggest problem we had in relaunching Budget, which was market leader by a long way at the time, back out of liquidation and into the market, was just trying to get people to come back because they liked the experience they found. And I think that's true of digital events. I think there's a lot of clients who are very happy with this format. It's very low on lots of, it's very low in terms of its investment. There's not travel involved. There's not, travel-related expenses involved. I think, by the way, corporate travel policies are going to be very, very cautious for well past the vaccine's complete impact. So, I would hazard to say the majority of our business will be digital online, because I think that that's a very important business model for us to continue to lead in. We happen to be very good at it. We've adapted to it very, very well. We were doing a very good webinar business for a long time beforehand, so we had the talent, and we've just gotten better at it, in my view. But look, there are certain live events that we're known for. We hold a CMO summit annually, typically in New York. It's very well respected and recognized by our members. And, I would look forward to having that event return. Likewise, we have had DataX as a data analytics and tech related conference occur in London, in Singapore, and we were going to, just before the pandemic, run it in San Francisco. And I'd still like to do that, because that world, I think, it will benefit from the networking opportunities that are presented when you do it in person and so on. So I hope I'm answering the question, Andy. But I think, that there's going to be a hybrid of some description, but digital has enormous benefits to clients and to audiences. Again, we got folks who are joining us online from all sorts of geographies, which we would never been able to reach in the past. And so I think, we can think of ourselves as this platform reaching business-to-business audiences in lots of places who would not otherwise have budget, perhaps, to take a trip to San Francisco or Chicago or any of the other major, conference and event cities. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And for me personally, and many of the people that I speak with throughout the world, South America, Latin America, Silicon Valley, United Kingdom, a lot of the people really are saying to me, and I'm finding it myself, that I actually love the technology. I love being able to focus in on a Zoom call or focus in on an online conference, because I feel sometimes when I go live, sometimes there's some distractions around and I don't get to focus right in. But when I'm on a call, even like this, I know I'm focused right in. I'm like right with you, right there. I'm listening to every single word. And I think that really bodes well for Argyle's obviously future and what you've done. And I see you making the right decision with your grit that you mentioned, that you're going to make the good decision and be very persistent. And it's all going to work out, because the one thing that you've been able to do is provide a world-class service to your customers. And you always put your customers first. The people that contact you are always the main objective to help them. And then you get to help the other side too, because you're putting on such amazing conferences and giving such great information out that you really have the perfect business, because you're helping both sides of the coin become much better, get what they need, and more importantly, be able to connect to do business together to make a great change in the world. So with that, Paul, Thanks, I think I just wanted to thank you so much for coming on the show today. And this has been a long-awaited show for me. I love what you're doing at Argyle. I think it's phenomenal. And I'm sure that many of the people watching have already attended an Argyle conference or will attend one in the near future. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you.